So as we know, we can interact with the DOM and we can capture different types of events. And of course, we are going to change the topic right now, but we are still going to use directives because using a directive is the way to capture an event. That's the idea. So the most common event is going to be the onClick, of course. So I'm going to show you how to do it with this example. So right now I have just the name on an H1 tag and the data name of Francis. So if I go to the application, we just get Francis, right? Okay. So what I want to do, I want to use this event and trigger a method right here. All right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say div, just a common div. And this one is going to say click me, right? So how can we use the click? Now, if we go to the documentation right here in the directives, you're gonna get a v-on. So whenever you use v-on, you can pass some kind of rule and capture maybe a click event or maybe a double click event. Right here, you get different examples. This is the way to do it. If you see something like this, don't worry. We will talk about this later. Right now, we're gonna use the v-on and then everything else. So okay. So first, we need to use v-on. That is the directive. Then, since we want to use click, we just say click. And then we want to trigger a function. So we say equal, and then we need to pass the name of the function. We don't have this function. So I'm going to add this. So I'm going to say methods, open and close. And the method, it's going to be update name. Really, really simple. Just a function. Now this one, the only thing it's going to do is going to change the name to Steve or maybe something else. So we're going to say this, that name, it's equal to Steve whenever we fire this function. Makes sense. We can have already did this. All right. So of course, right now we need to pass what we want to run, and we want to run the update name. So I'm going to say update name. All right. So I'm going to reload the application. I'm going to click me, and we just change it to Steve. Really, really simple. Really straightforward. Okay. Of course, you get different types of events. You can do double click, DBL, click, and all the names, they are just like, in JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. So they are pretty much the same events. So you don't need to, invent something right here. Let me save it and test it. If I click once, nothing happens. And if I click twice, it works, right? Very, very simple. It's Vue.js is simple to use and very, very straightforward. Okay, now sometimes, and this is the important part, you need to know some information about the event. For example, if you move a mouse on top of a div, maybe you want to know the position of the X and Y of that mouse, right? Very straightforward example, a classic example, not doing anything new right here. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to create a style tag, just a style, and I'm going to add a class of box. Now this box will be getting a background of red, just like this. A width of, I don't know, maybe 200 pixels, not too big. And since this is a box, same thing. Width and height, 200 pixels. All right. So now what I want to do, I want to create this box on the div. I'm gonna comment this. We don't really need it right now, but of course this is gonna go to you. So I'm gonna create a div with a class of box, right? Right. So I'm going to say box, and this one is going to be hover me. There's no need to write anything right here, but So we get the hover me, the red box, and everything else. I'm using the zoom, so that's why it's bigger. Okay. So now what we want to do, we want to trigger a function where we're going to be getting the coordinates of the mouse on top of the red div, and I want to print this coordinates right here on the screen. So I'm going to say X, and then I'm going to say Y, and I got a message Y. All right. Okay. So now whenever we do the hover, I want to trigger a function to get this information. So I'm going to say v-on, and we get the mouse move. Just like I told before, this is just like a mouse move. So this is just like vanilla JavaScript. And I'm going to call the function getCoord. We don't have this function. We're going to add it right now. So I'm going to go right here at the bottom, say getCoord, And now on this one, what we will need to do is to set the x and the y. All right. So first off, we're going to say x and we're going to say y. Of course, the autocomplete sometimes drives me crazy. So we get the x. It's going to start at 0 and the y is going to start at 0. And now I'm going to print it right here. So whenever the application loads, everything is going to be 0, right? Makes sense. So all right, it's done. Of course, I reload the application, we get x and y 0, and of course we hover, nothing happens, right? Because we're using the function, but we are not really doing anything right here. So on this one, what we will need to do is to set the coordinates. Now, the funny thing is that whenever you use the v-on and the mouse move, and you of course trigger a function or a method, this method automatically will get an event. By default, you always get an event. Vue.js knows that you're using events, and they will pass event as an argument right here, right? Just like, vanilla JavaScript. So I'm going to say this.x, and now we need to need to get the event of the client x. Since we get the event by default, we do have access, and we say client and then x, right? And the same thing with the y. So this dot y and then client y. This is just a very common example, not doing anything new. So if I, of course, we mouse over the red box, we are automatically getting the coordinates. This was just to show you that whenever we use an event, just like this, we get the event by default. You do always have access to this. All right. So let's go to the next one. This one was real simple. We're going to keep expanding this with some events and arguments.